This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Argentina's general election in October is coming at a time of serious economic turmoil, with an inflation rate of more than 100%, a rising poverty rate, and collapsing currency. But last Sunday, the country held its presidential primary election, which is, in many ways, a sort of dress rehearsal for the real thing. The winner of that primary was Javier Milei, a populist hardcore libertarian who had previously been polling in third place. So in this video, we'll take a look through the most recent results, take a look at Milei's outspoken views and policies, and explore whether this populist outsider might really end up as Argentina's next president. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. To begin with, we ought to briefly explain the electoral system. We're specifically talking about the presidential race, but just so you know, it is a general election, so in addition to electing a president and vice president, members of the National Congress will also be elected this year. But anyway, back to the presidential election. The actual election date is the 22nd of October, but what happened last Sunday on August the 13th was what is known as the PASO, which stands for the Open, Simultaneous and Mandatory Primaries. These basically allow voters to choose which candidate makes it onto the final ballot, and as such provides a key indicator of voter preference ahead of the actual election. Essentially, the ballot paper features candidates from the various political alliances. Some alliances will have just one candidate, whilst others will have multiple candidates competing for their alliance's nomination. Voters can vote for anyone on the ballot paper, though they must only cast a single vote. For a candidate to qualify for the actual election, they must receive 1.5% of the vote or more, and in the case of multiple candidates in the same alliance, then the candidate who receives the most votes will go forward as that alliance's nominee. So with that in mind, let's look at the primary results. In first place, with around 30% of the vote, was Javier Milei, a hardcore libertarian who had been described as a far-right populist and compared to the likes of Donald Trump and Bolsonaro. By the way, if you're interested in Latin American politics, then check out our latest daily discussion episode, where myself and Rory discuss the idea of a pink tide in the region, exclusively on Nebula, so click the link in the description. Anyway, not far off Milei's 30% was the main centre-right opposition alliance Together for Change, whose two candidates received a combined 28.3%. Out of those two, former Security Minister Patricia Bullrich won the most votes, so will be the alliance's presidential candidate. Then, in overall third place, was the ruling centre-left Peronist alliance called Union for the Homeland, whose two candidates won a combined 27.3%. More votes went to the Economy Minister Sergio Massa, so he'll be the alliance's candidate in the October election. So, what does all this mean? Well, the main thing is that Javier Milei's victory is a major upset that will likely upend the presidential race. Before the primary vote, Milei had been polling in third place, so his result is a significant outperformance. It's also delivered a major shock to the two main political forces in the country, and solidifies Milei's position as a genuine competitive candidate. But who exactly is he? Well, his hair and image certainly make him a distinctive figure, but his statements, views and policies are what really matter. He's an economist who made a name for himself appearing on television and has served as a congressman since 2021, spending a lot of time railing against the, quote, parasitic, corrupt and political caste. Among other things, he has advocated scrapping the central bank and dollarizing the economy. He attacks what he calls cultural Marxism and says he'll close the Ministry of Women, Gender and Diversity. He wants to significantly cut spending, shrink the size of the state and privatise state-owned enterprises. He also denies the impact of human activity on global warming, calling it a socialist lie, opposes gun control and is staunchly against abortion. He's also said that he considers the sale of human organs as just another market, and that it therefore should be free from state regulation. He's denounced the country's sex education policy as a part of a post-Marxist agenda to destroy the socialist nucleus that is the family. We could go on, but you probably get the idea by now. Part of what Milei has done is tap into popular anger and frustration at the country's present economic turmoil. And it's fair to say that Argentina is not in a good place. Annual inflation is at 115%, the currency continues to slide, and the poverty rate has risen to nearly 40%, so it may not be surprising that the government and political establishment is unpopular. In fact, a poll in March found that just 1 in 10 Argentinians had a positive image of President Alberto Fernandez, a fact that probably influenced his announcement in April that he'll not seek re-election. So, given all of this and the results of the primary, is Javier Milei on his way to winning the presidency? Well, he's certainly built up a lot of momentum. However, that by no means guarantees a victory. Yes, he did emerge as the biggest vote-getter, but only a few percentage points ahead of the two main alliances. The fact that Milei's bloc, the Conservative Together for Change and left-wing Unity for the Homeland, all received 27 to 30% of the vote in the primary suggests that all three will struggle to win outright in the first round in October, meaning the presidential election will likely go to a two-person runoff in November. If he does indeed get to that runoff, then some polling from July puts him behind his two potential opponents. Specifically, it puts Milei about 1 point behind Massa, the candidate for the ruling alliance, and nearly 8 points behind Bullrich, the candidate for the main conservative opposition. But a big caveat here is that 1, this polling is from before the primary, 2, there aren't loads of don't knows or undecideds, and 3, the primary itself shows that polling can tell you one thing and then another thing entirely can happen. So ultimately, we just don't know exactly what will happen. What we do know for sure, though, is that Argentina is being pulled to the right, whether or not Milei becomes president. That's because the two winning candidates from the mainstream alliances were more right-wing than their respective opponents. Whoever will come into office will face serious economic trouble, and while they all have different plans to address it, they have in common the fact that they might find governing the country is rather difficult, as current projections show Congress being split, with none of the blocs holding a majority. TLDR is all about independent journalism and using facts and data to back up our reporting. We truly believe in the importance of this, and hopefully you do too. As such, we're brushing up on our data and analysis skills to make ourselves better reporters, and we're doing that on Brilliant. They're the STEM learning platform full of all kinds of courses, which can help with improving your career and understanding of the world. For instance, their hypothesis testing course allows us to better analyse claims and test our own assumptions and theories. Or the predicting with probability course helped us better understand projections and forecasts, allowing us to better understand when there's something weird going on with official projects. It's not just statistics though. The interactive and engaging courses over at Brilliant can take you through all kinds of important topics from the worlds of maths, data science and computer science. Brilliant have been a long-term supporter of the channel, so if you've ever considered checking it out, we'd really appreciate it if you used our link. That way they'll continue to support us, and perhaps more importantly for you, the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Brilliant for supporting TLDR.